Hi guys, it is Ariana from Stories at Sunrise here again with Steel Damp Hair to talk to you guys about one of my favorite non-fiction writers, which has to be Sam Kean. So I'm going to be talking about the 3 books by Sam Kean that I've read, though he does have another book that I haven't read and I don't own. So the 3 that I do own of his are The Tale of the Dueling Neurosurgeons, The History of the Human Brain, so this one focuses on neuroscience, The Disappearing Spoon, which focuses on chemistry and the periodic table, and then The Violinist's Thumb, which focuses on genetics. And so I love all 3 of these marvelous books. There you go, now you can see my face. And this is probably my favorite, but then again, I'm a brain person, so I like brains, so that's why. And I love all 3 of his books that I own. I really want to read his other book, which I believe is about air in the atmosphere, and I will never stop hyping him because I have yet to see him do it wrong. The first thing I want to emphasize is that Sam Kean is really funny. And I know probably if you're not into science and you're reading a book about the periodic table, you're like, why is this book funny? How can it be funny? I don't understand. It's talking to me about atoms and elements. Like, what do you mean? He's very funny. I love the way that he incorporates the humor of coincidence and circumstance into his novels. One thing he does really well is he discusses how current culture and climate affects scientific discoveries. So, for example, one thing that Sam Kean discusses a lot in this book is that the injuries and disfiguring of soldiers in World War I and World War II led to a lot of major scientific advances, and he uses the tragedy and the immense humor of the researchers and the clinicians and the patients to explore how science is fun, quirky, and unique. I love one story in here where he talks about how scientists discovered how some neurons that are important in vision work completely on accident because they basically didn't have enough money to get all the proper equipment to do other research, and so they were doing it all by hand, and so they made a mistake, and we're like, oops, I guess we discovered some fun neuron properties. Let's just go with it. And so I love how humorous he is and how his writing feels light and has a drive to it that keeps you engaged. Another thing I love about Sam Kean is that he spends a lot of time exploring scientific concepts at their most basic for people that aren't knowledgeable about the topic, while also never making it feel overdone for people that know something about the topic. For example, in The Violinist's Thumb, he spends a lot of time exploring how genes work, how gene replication works, how mutations function, and how that can arise in negative and positive ways. And as someone who has taken on a bit of biology, I understand the basic concepts of this, but he extends beyond what I know and goes further and explores it in a way that's really interesting. For The Tale of the Dueling Neurosurgeons, the topic I know the most about, I never feel like it's dry and I'm just repeating myself. And I love how he explores concepts from, for example, genetics in a way that feels fresh and connects to other issues. For example, I remember a particularly memorable example in The Violinist's Thumb is he spends a bit of time discussing how mental illness and genes are affected and work together to create issues for individuals. And I love how he does that discussion and incorporates the 2 things that are sometimes considered disparate. And as a topic that I'm interested in, he really engaged my mind in a way that I hadn't really thought about it before. And here I believe he talks specifically about the suprachiasmatic nucleus and the way that that can be related to certain disorders like schizophrenia. And I just love how he does that and can relate those 2 things in ways that aren't immediately obvious to people who haven't done the research that he has clearly done into all of these books. And that's really impressive and really well done, because it is a tricky balance to hold where you explain it enough for the people that don't understand, but not over-explain it for those that know things about the topic. And that's something that I really applaud Sam Kean on, because it's amazing and really well done. Another thing that I think Sam Kean does really well in a way that's connected to my previous point is that Sam Kean doesn't stray away from the way that society and culture and science interact with each other, particularly from philosophical and ethical domains. So how we understand elements and chemical properties affects the way that we see value in material things. Like, for example, for a long time, aluminum was more valuable than gold. And how we interact with our environment and ourselves from an understanding of science can really affect how we look at morality and philosophy and ethics. That comes up more in the ones later, I think, specifically when you're talking about the human body and the human brain. But I find it really fascinating how he can integrate the questions that some scientists wrestle with in their research into a way that's accessible for those outside of the field of a scientific discipline like chemistry and outside of the realm of philosophy and ethics. Because I think just broaching those questions to the general public helps the general public to be more engaged with academic dialogue, because I think sometimes it's easy for lay people to forget that academics do their research, or at least they should be doing their research, for the betterment of society and not just for themselves. Another thing that I think that Sam Kean does really well is there's a driving force and movement throughout his books. Because these are nonfiction, they don't exactly have a plot. There's not like a story arc in the same way as you would see in fictional novels. But there is a drive. He tends to go and he starts it in the past with our most earliest understandings and then move forward through a variety of topics. And he does so in a really interesting and unique way. So he explores Gregor Mendel and his original research in this book, but he also goes to more modern topics and understandings of how we look at genes. And I love how he moves things forward, because sometimes with nonfiction books it's easy to get stagnant. You kind of sit with an idea and you just dive into its details and its depth and richness, and that's really important and valuable, but I prefer that stagnation and dwelling on a thought in books that are obviously more academic, because then the people interested in it, they want to go down, they don't want to get an overview. And for books that are designed for the general public like these are, it's done really well to move things forward, and it's a really good idea for him, and he does really well is to connect people to the ideas that are big and crucial to the understanding of a field, such as, for this case, genetics, and allows lay people to engage and understand what is happening in that field, even if they don't follow the field or thoroughly understand it, in a way that makes it accessible for people. His ability to make these books that could be very difficult accessible is really valuable, and I really treasure how he writes in a way that doesn't feel like a chore. Because no one wants to read books like these and feel like it's a chore. That's not fun for anybody. So I really appreciate how he writes these books like that. The one thing that is interesting about Sam Kean's books is that he also does notes at the back. And so he does, here I'll show you. So for example, this is from The Violinist's Thumb. So he has notes. There we go, can't flip on the camera. So he has notes at the back of his book so that you can learn more about a topic. They're odd little tangents, they're fun little things. I love the fact that Sam Kean does this, because as someone who's always interested in finding out more about like topics, particularly once he's talked about them, they get me really interested and excited about the topic. Having those notes available for people so you can go back and read them is really fun and cute, and oftentimes the stories are really funny or odd or humorous, and they don't add to the main drive of the books, but they are fun little detours that I really value and appreciate, and I'm glad he keeps them in the book. Because sometimes when you read nonfiction, the little notes are boring in the back and you just ignore them, but in here they're not. I sometimes wish when I'm reading it that it was just like a little flap and I could flip it open and just read it and not have to flip back and forth, but that's just me being overly particular. So that is all of my main points about why I really love and enjoy Sam Kean's writing. They're great books. I highly recommend. I'm just going to do this for you guys. And they're a lot of fun. I would really recommend them if you're interested in looking at science writing and dipping your toe into that field of writing and that genre. Hi guys, it's Ariana here, editing Ariana now at this point. So I lost all the footage for the last 30 seconds to a minute of this video. So I'm just here to say thank you for watching my I Love Sam Kean video. I really enjoyed making it. And if you have any questions about Sam Kean and his books, I'll do my very best to answer them because I love his books so much. So, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again later.